Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Laura Rogers and this is Power Hour. This is a weekly show I do Wednesdays at 11 Central. Welcome to anyone who's new, and this is about just doing things in Microsoft 365. If you are not necessarily super technical, this is all just out of the box things that you can do in SharePoint and Teams and Power Automate, Power Apps. I am not a programmer. So we cover topics more geared towards business users. Now, some of the things that we talk about kind of almost delve into programming and figuring out syntax for things like like some of the stuff we'll be doing today. But I don't write code, so I'm coming from the perspective of a business user. All right, we usually have Joelle here with us. She had a baby last month, and she'll be out for a few months. So today's topic, you all voted in my newsletter I sent out yesterday. You all voted for, drumroll, the new SharePoint list rules engine, the rules interface, and form editor. So these are two new things that we'll cover. And they're both sort of, you can tell that they're brand new. They kind of both have their positive and negatives. So we'll go ahead and go over both of those. Thanks everybody for voting, and we chat. That's the fun of having a live show, is that we chat, have a conversation, ask questions throughout the show. So we're using Microsoft Teams. So wherever you're watching this, you're going to have a little link at the bottom to click to fill out a form to join. And you go to Teams once you've been invited, and then you switch over to our organization. And once I start screen sharing, I'll go ahead and show you that real quick too. All right, so let's get on to our topic. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And I have, let's see, first of all, I'll show you Teams. So let me go pull that up. I am in Teams already, but I'll just flip to something else so I can show you what it looks like when you arrive. Now, when you are in Teams, you're going to see the name of your organization up here at the top right, and you're going to click it as a drop down, and you're going to switch over to IW Mentor Power Hour, and then you'll arrive in here where there's one team called Power Hour, and you go to the general channel. Now, the cool thing about having this on YouTube and chatting in Teams is that I've created tabs for each of our power hours. So you go to today's tab, and then if you don't see the conversation out there on the right, you can, oops, where did I click? Hold on. You can click this little conversation toggle. So notice it starts off just by filling up a screen. I can click this, and now we're chatting and watching the video at the same time. All right, so that's where we are with that. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about this new concept, the new rules engine. So that's what we'll talk about first. So here I have a SharePoint list. I created this list just using one of those new list templates. It's called Travel Requests, and that's what I'm using for the demo. And this list is in the Power Hour SharePoint site that you all have access to as well. So keep it appropriate, but you can create travel requests in here, and that way, you know, your stuff will be part of the demo. All right, so the first of all, you'll see on the Automate dropdown. Let me zoom in a little bit in my browser, just a little there. On the Automate dropdown box, in lists and libraries, you're going to see two new options in here. You've got create a rule and manage rules. So you create a rule. Once you've created one or more rules, then you can click manage rules to go manage them. I'll go ahead and start by creating a rule, and we'll talk about what these options are. So this is basically a really simplified version of creating like a workflow or a flow or an alert. So this is really raw. I mean, it's brand new. It doesn't do much. There isn't much to it. So the notify someone when, so this is what is your trigger going to be. So you say, I want to notify somebody when a column changes. I want to notify somebody when a specific column value changes, or when a new item is created in the list, or when an item is deleted. Now, keep in mind that we still have SharePoint Alerts. So SharePoint Alerts, I'll go over there kind of after I go over what rules look like. But again, alerts, workflows, flows, they all do these, but this is just a very, very simplified, kind of geared towards people who are brand new to SharePoint, so they can just quickly whip one of these up just to get a notification. All right, so if I say notify someone when a new item is created, this is my little rules wizard. So it says when a new item is created, send an email to, and I have requester, which is a field. So it's going to show me all my people fields in this SharePoint list. So every single list in library is always going to have 2 people fields, created by and modified by. So this is going to always have those 2 to pick from, but you could also pick requester, which in this list is an extra people field that exists. And then you can also say me. So when a new item is created, send an email to me, which I'm the one who wants the alert. So then I can click create, and now I have one rule created. Then to get back to this screen, I can go to automate and choose manage rules. And then this is where I can see the rule that I already created. I can turn it off and on, and I can go create another one. So these are going to have a little bit different options in them. So when a column changes, you just say which column it is and who to send an email to. So I'll go back and I'll say when a column value changes. So this one's got even more options. So and I can say airline is Delta. Oh, Delta's not one of the options. Southwest, send an email to me. So I only want to be notified about emails where the airline is Southwest, and so then I can create that. Now, it doesn't give you any option for configuring what the email is going to look like. All right, so this is what you get. It's basically what is going to trigger. The only action you have is sending an email. So like I said, super, super simple. And what does the email look like? Well, I noticed when I created one of these yesterday, and then I started creating items in the list, and I wasn't receiving emails, so I thought maybe something was broken or I was doing it wrong. The email arrived about an hour later, so again, it's a little raw. Now, this is what the email looks like. So this was just, this specific one was a rule that I created on my SharePoint list for Power Hour signups, where all the items arrive whenever you fill out the form to sign up for Power Hour. And so someone named Anna signed up, and I got this email. So this is what it says. So it's going to say who created the item, and it gives me the title. So every list in SharePoint has that built-in title field. And your libraries have like the name of the file and a title field, but this is just the title field from the list, and it just tells me which list, and it says go to the item. That is what the email entails, and that is your only option. You have no email configuration options. It's just letting you know something happened. It's better than nothing, right? So at least it gives people a simple way to kind of keep tabs on what's going on in SharePoint. But they kind of already did with alerts, but this is a little bit different than alerts. Alerts don't have the granular triggers that these have, so it's slightly different. So then it just gives me a link to go to that item, and it says, why am I receiving this notification? And then it gives you a little help, basically a little help screen for letting you know how to go edit rules. And it's just basically the Microsoft support stuff. So I'll go ahead and I have a list of resources I've been putting in the post tab in here. And it says resource links for today. So I'm just going to go add that link. it's about 5 or 6 links that I put in there where it says resource links for today. So that's all the things that you'll need for today. All right, so that is what the email looks like, and that's what the rules look like. What do you think? Let's see. Yeah. It's got a really pretty little, I like the way the rules are structured. I like the way it gives you the simplicity of just the drop downs and being able to pick. And it makes it very, very easily understandable, I think. Because Flow, it's a whole other level. Like, there is training involved. It doesn't just magically work and magically make sense to everyone. And you kind of do need to understand some technical concepts to work in Flow. So this is what you get. Now, for those of you who might be new to SharePoint, alerts have been around since the dawn of SharePoint. And there you can alert yourself for any list or library has this little alert me thing. You can also send yourself an alert for any specific item in a list or library. So I'll just show you that just real quick as a recap. You can give it a name. You can change the name of your alert because you can create multiple alerts. You say who you want to send the alerts to, and if you're an admin, like an owner on the site, it lets you pick other people, so you don't have to just create alerts for yourself. You can just put somebody else's name or a group name. And then, what do I want to be notified? Do I only want an alert when new items are added? I could just call this like new travel requests, and I could say I want to be notified when new items are added. And then when you're getting things, alerts on things that are changed, and you don't want to get alerts when other people change things, you can get a little bit more granular about not getting alert about something you just changed. So you can say someone else changed an item, someone else changed an item that I created, someone else changed an item I modified. And then you say whether you want to get that alert immediately or a daily summary of alerts, like a list of all the things that were added or changed, or a weekly summary. And you can say when exactly you want to get that summary. The cool thing about alerts compared to these new rules is that the alert has data in it. The email has field information from that item, and it will say the actual data information, the column information in the item. Now, those emails aren't customizable either, so that you kind of get what you get, but at least you have some data besides just the title of the item. So that's how alerts work. And if you are signed up in my training, just my SharePoint beginners courses have information about creating alerts in them. The very first blog post I ever wrote was about alerts, and that was like 10, 12 years ago. Oh my gosh, let me see. And it has a cool little trick where you can be alerted about something specific. Oh my gosh, let me see if I can find it. Alerts based on views. I wrote this February 11th, 2009, my very first blog post. So that's, it's basically if you create a filtered view, then when you create an alert, you'll have a special extra option in here. It has to be a view with the filter on it. If you don't have any filter views, you won't see this option, but you'll get an option to notify you about only things that change that are in that view. And so that's what my very first blog post was, because I thought that was a cool little trick that not many people, probably still not many people know about it. But so if you want to be notified about things happening in SharePoint, you can get alerts, you can do these little new rules, and you can do Power Automate. Let's see. Andrew says, can this be set up inside of Teams, or do you have to be in SharePoint directly? The rules thing, let's see. So I'm going to take my travel request list, and I'm going to go put it in Teams. Let's see. Let me share my screen here. So I've got SharePoint, and then it's a little slow. Lists, travel requests, And then that is the travel request list that is on this SharePoint site. And I don't see, let me shrink this down a little bit. I have view stuff that I can do, and I can edit in grid view, but I don't have that full plethora of things that you can do across the top of a list. So it looks like managing rules is not in here, at least not yet, to answer your question. All right. Now, let's see, this, yeah, the funny thing about all this is that you have specific things that you can get alerts about, which are really just things being created or things being modified and somebody other than you modifying them. But then with rules, you can do specific columns being modified or specific columns changing to a specific value, which you can't do in alerts. So, but then alerts have more data in the body of the email. It's interesting. It's a conundrum. So, that is kind of nice. Let's see. What did I miss? Joe says, if you edit an alert that you've included other people on, will it update for them as well? That is a good question. So let me go ahead and create an alert. And I'll put Billy on it. So I'll show you how that works. So I'll just say existing items are modified. Somebody else changes something that I last changed. When you create an alert, you're immediately going to get an email letting you know, and let whoever you created the alert for, letting them know that there's a new alert. So just heads up on that. So I created the alert. Now, once you've created alerts for other people, then you're going to go to your site settings. And first of all, to get when you're with your own alerts, let me just go over your own alerts. You can manage by just clicking Manage My Alerts. So when I'm managing my alerts, it's got, here's the name of the alert. I click on it, and it doesn't have the ability to change the person on it or anything, but I can adjust my alert and I can delete my own alerts. But if you're a site owner, then you have a different screen you need to go to edit other people's alerts. So I'll go to Site Information, Site Settings, and then I have User Alerts. Oh, there it is, User Alerts, under Site Administration. So this is going to, first you have to pick which user it is. So by default, the screen's not going to have anything on it, which is a little weird, right? So I pick Billy Bob and then click Update, and then all the alerts that Billy Bob has created or other people have created for him, any alerts that are being sent to Billy Bob on this whole site, on any of the lists and libraries on this site, will show listed here. And then I can't edit his alert. I can only delete it. So this is for all those times, and you as site admins, this may be a familiar scenario where people create an alert from themselves and they get all these emails, and then they're like, I don't want to get all these emails. And they don't click just the Manage Alerts button and go delete their own alerts. They email you, the site owner, and then you have to go in here and delete their alerts for them. This is how you do it. You can't edit their alerts and adjust it to send it with new or modified or whatever. You just have to delete it, and then you'd have to recreate a new one. All right. Don't think I missed anything. Okay, so now let's talk about the form editor. Are you ready? Okay. Alerts are kind of, I mean, the rules thing is kind of wah-wah. All right. I put a good post when I posted all the resources here on the post channel. Let me just show you on my screen real quick. Go to posts, and I said here, resource links for today. And then I just replied to it with I replied to my own conversation here with all the different links. So I've got configure the list form. I've got a blog post by April Dunham, who's amazing, and she's really cool. And she wrote a blog post and did a video on customizing this form editor. She is more of a dev than I am. She has done a lot of cool list formatting and column formatting stuff. If you ever go on GitHub and look at like all that column formatting that's available, like she's contributed a lot of that stuff. So she actually knows how to write JSON and I don't. So she's going to have more answers as far as specifics about the like granular specifics about how to edit the JSON and make the JSON do what you want it to do. So she and I are coming from it from slightly different perspectives. I'm doing everything I can to not have to write code and showing you what you can do out of the box. So that's her post, which is awesome. And then that's her link to the code that she uses in her post. And then here's a link to show or hide columns in a list form, which I'll talk about. And that's the edit rule for a list. So that's where all the links are. So go back over to our little conversation here. Okay. So here I created a travel request list, and you'll notice you all probably already filled out some travel requests, that it's got this nice pretty form. And it's got things all in, you know, in certain locations on the form, and it's got sort of these sections going down the form. Pretty nice, pretty slick, right? So that is, I did that with a form editor using what I learned watching her her video. All right, so I'll show you kind of the different pieces to this and some issues that I kind of came across that are just little weird nuances. So definitely some things, some gotchas that you need to know about. All right, let's see. So I'm going to create another new list. So I'm not going to mess with this one that I already created and the code that I already created. I'm just going to leave it alone. So I'll just do another new travel request list, and you all can add stuff to that one too if you want. All right, so I just create new, choose the travel request template, demo 2. I'll just call it demo 2 for live demo. And that will show in the navigation, and it will be travel request demo 2. So feel free to add some travel requests to this. I'll just add one real quick. So this is just, as you can tell, this is the usual, just out of the box SharePoint list form. So this is the thing that we're going to be customizing, that the form editor is going to let us customize. So test trip to Atlanta, and pull that out real quick. Put me. And say I'm going to the airport, and I'm going to go next week. I'm filling out all these fields just so that it's got data in the view. There. And this uses the location column for these fields that you see that lets you pick an actual real location. That's the location column. All right, so now I've saved my travel request, and this is where I'll do the demo. So let me go ahead and pull this over to another screen so I can remember what I'm doing. Okay. I'm trying to read the comments too as we go. Let's see. All right, what type of field is destination? That is so Todd just asked that, so that is a location column. Interesting, right? So that's a fairly new column type. I just updated my course on our site, iwmentor.com. There's a course called Managing Lists and Libraries in our SharePoint Power User category, and I just recently updated a bunch of that. And I added information about the location column in there, and I'll have some new things to add now. So just added the stuff last week, and I'll be adding rules and this stuff we're covering today also. They like to keep me on my toes. So now that I have this list, I'll show you. So you can go to the new button, and you can have this. You have this little drop down now. So this has has edit columns now. Edit columns here is not brand new, but it does have a little bit of new capability we'll talk about in a second with the conditional formula in it. So edit columns just gives you the ability to say drag things around, or drag your columns up and down to rearrange them, or just show and hide them. So I just unchecked the box next to the approved column, and now I don't see it there. So notice that I have to click the new button. I can't go edit an existing item, and I can view an existing item and I can see this little drop down, but I can't go edit one and see it's just not there. So that's just one little nuance to note. Also, this is weird. So I'm logged in as Billy Bob, who is kind of has the same role as you all, and I was like, well, can Billy Bob edit this form too? Because that's disturbing. So you'll notice that you all can probably edit the form, edit the actual form itself and the columns that are showing, because you all are members of the site. So let me go ahead and try that as Billy Bob, and I'll go refresh this, because this permission thing is definitely something to be aware of and kind of know what's going on. So come on, where's it? There it is. Okay. So here's my new list, and Billy Bob is a member just like all you are, and he's an external just like all of you are. But can he go edit columns? So I'm going to take off the travel end date, click save. And yeah, so now travel end date is gone, and I'll go log in as me and just verify this. And I'll go create a new one, and travel end date is gone. So is that a little alarming? So that all of the members of your site can edit the form too. So before you start spending a lot of time customizing your form and making it look cool, and like you don't want anybody else to accidentally break it. So here's what you need to do. If you don't want all the members on your site to be able to edit the form, you just want them to be able to add and edit items in the list, right? So I go to list settings, and I go to permissions for this list, and we're just going to change them to contribute instead of edit, because I can't stand this edit permission level. You've heard me rant about this for years. So I stop inheriting permissions so that I'm giving this list different permissions than all the other lists and libraries on this site, and then the top level of the site. And I change my members instead of edit. Edit means that you can manage all of the lists and libraries, add and edit and delete entire lists and libraries, and manage all the settings in your lists and libraries, which you might not want people to do. Same thing with Power Apps, and like any list that you're using Power Apps on that you might not want other people modifying the columns on. So I go to edit user permissions, and I just change them from edit to contribute. That doesn't surprise you though, right? Okay, so now people only have contribute permission, and all the members, they're still members, but they just can't manage that entire list. So now I'll go ahead and go over and go to that list as Billy Bob. And then, so this was a little weird to me that I went in as Billy Bob, and even when I made him like demoted sort of his permissions, let me do Control F5. It looked like he still had that little drop down. The Power Apps, the Customize with Power Apps button goes away. So that's one of the things that, you know, if you customize a list form with Power Apps and you don't want other members of your site editing it in Power Apps and editing the design of your form, that same principle. So he can go edit columns, which I thought was a little weird, and then unchecks travel start date, but then notice that it doesn't go away. So Microsoft didn't lock down the interface. He can still get to the screen where you're editing columns. He just tries to make an edit, and the edits don't actually show in the list. So it's kind of tricking him to thinking that he's making changes, but he's not impacting anyone else. He's not even impacting himself. It doesn't make the column go away. Weird, right? Okay. So that's the behavior. Just so you'll know that you might want to make, be careful about your permissions. So I'm going to go back in here and real quick put my start date travel end date back on there, and I'm going to drag it here. Okay, so now it has been returned. And then we'll talk about customizing this form. So the way you do it is you go and click New, click Configure Layout, and this is all done in JSON. So hopefully soon this won't be only in JSON. We'll have a nice pretty UI. And it won't be Power Apps, but it will be some other UI for customizing the list form. So this at least gives you a way to kind of make it look nice looking like we did in the other travel request list. So let me see, I'll go over to my other copy of this list. Okay, so you have 3 different places where you can apply this, this formatting, and it is the header, body, and footer. So the header is at the top. The header is in this other list. I'll show you what the header looks like. I did this header that says airline, and then whatever airline you pick, it shows it up here. So and I put a little icon next to it. So I'll show you. I got that code from April's little example, and I'll show you a couple of things that I did in here to customize it. I'm going to go over the body part first because to me the body was the most easy and straightforward, and then I'm going to go over all the painful things with the header and the footer. So let's go ahead and go over to the body so I can customize the body. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'll go ahead and show you what this sort of syntax needs to look like. I'm going to put this in Notepad++. Okay, this is really simple. You just use this concept of sections. This is all that it entails. This is all the body code entails. So it is code, unfortunately, but it is pretty easy to manipulate code. So it's got this concept of sections, and you can give your sections names. So where I have, I'll kind of put this side by side with what the form looks like, sort of. There. So I named my section. The first section is Trip Basics, and then you just put the names of the different fields that you want to show in that section. And this is just the display name. So notice that it's in quotes. It's just the display name of the list of the column that you see here right in the form. So I have trip title, reason for travel, a extra column I'll talk about in a minute called I am the traveler that I did some logic on. And then I have a second, you all have sections a lot in your forms, right? Sections are a very common thing that we need to have in forms. Sometimes sections are the only thing that we really need to customize. I mean, we just want it to look a little bit nicer and just be arranged in a certain way. And sometimes we don't need to go the full extent of doing Power Apps with all the complexity and customization. Sometimes it's just something simple that we need. So this is going to be really good for addressing those things. So the second section I want is trip details. So I just type that for this display name, and I just type, and so each field, I'm just typing the name of the field and a comma, and then in quotes, and the name of the next field in quotes with a comma, and you just don't put a comma after the last one in each section. So it's section, 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 and I've put the cost. Now, whatever you don't put in this last section, it will appear in the last section. So let's see, I put approved in here because approved was, approved is that one that I hid a minute ago. So approved is technically in this section, it's just hidden. So if I take like requester and I delete it, so I'll go take this code and we'll just play with it with the new list. So here's the body. I'll paste, this is the code that I was just showing you. It's just easier to look at in Notepad++ because of the color coding, right? Yeah, that was a weird column name, I know. Sorry, I was just trying to think of something on the top, off the top of my head, and something to say like whether I'm the one that's going on the trip or not. So yeah, it's a weird column name. Y'all are hilarious. So if I take like requester, I think requester is supposed to be spelled with an O, requestor, but that was the out of the box field in this template, so just leaving it. Okay, so I hit save. So notice my form immediately changes. Now, notice a couple of things are missing, and we'll talk about how to make tweaks and things, because that's where it starts getting messy and hairy, and then you start losing hours of your day when you start dealing with these column names and things. So I've got, where did requester go? It's down here in the costs section. So requester is down here because, and so is trip title, because I didn't list them specifically when I was naming all those fields. I didn't list them, so it's automatically going to put them in the bottom section. So you could just name your last section something like more questions or something like that, and then that way all those fields that just fall into that section it will make sense. So one thing that I did was I changed the name of the trip title field. So because I wanted to show you that it's the name, the display name that this code is looking at. So I'm going to go in here and rename this and call it trip title, like that. And then let's go look at the code again. Okay, I'll go to it again. So Candace is saying, how did you get to that? So I click new. It is a little weird. And then I click this little new button up here at the top. And then I click configure layout. And then that's where I change it to body. And the body is where that's the meat of it. So notice I put trip title here. So now I actually, instead of changing the code to say the name of the column, I changed the name of the column. So now it just has to match. So now this column says trip title, just mashed together one word. And then this code says trip title. Then I've got reason for traveler. And then I am the traveler is a column that is in my code, but that is not in this list. And the reason I created I am the traveler is because there's this column called requester that I don't want I want the requester to only show if the currently logged in user is requesting travel for somebody else. Otherwise it can just be, you know, yourself. You don't have to fill in a requester field. So I can add requester. It's easier to add it to do all this in Notepad++, which is just a free download. Preview. So notice now requester appears here, but I haven't created I am the traveler yet. But I created trip details and then costs. And so it's just showing me all the fields. And then since I hid the approved column, it doesn't show it at all in that little cost section. Okay, I am the traveler. Now, there's another concept in here. Well, I'm gonna get to the logic after I go over the header and the footer stuff, but I'll go ahead and add this one more column. Add column, and it is a Boolean. Yes, no. I am the traveler. I am traveling. I could say I am traveling. Are you the person going on this trip? If so, choose yes. And then I'll just make the default be yes. And You can create as many sections. I think somebody asked thank you for answering questions for me. You can create as many sections as you want. And yes, this is just rolling out, so everybody might not have it yet. I have 3 different tenants that I work in all the time, and one of them doesn't have these new forms yet. So it's getting there. It's rolling out. Let's see. Pay attention to the characters in the examples. Yeah, you don't want to have invalid code, and that's where we're going to get into the header and footer stuff that was so confusing to me. So I'll go ahead and go. I keep wanting to go up to the right-hand corner of the screen. My kingdom for a semicolon. That's good. Okay, so you just got to open the form before you click up here. And then go configure the layout. And apply formatting to header. So this is where I went to April's code. And let me go. And there's also, they provide some code. So April's code is in the link in the post that I showed you. But they provide some code here too. So all you'd have to do is click right there in the box where you paste the code to get to this link that I also sent you. So configure the list form. And this gives you an example of some of the code. So this is a custom header in JSON. And then it's got a custom footer, custom body. So this is a big custom header. Copy that. And then go back to, where was I? Good grief. Oh, I was over here. It just took me to a different tab. Go to the header. And notice, okay, so it's already giving me a failure because title was not found on the data object. So there's no title showing here. And this is where I struggled a bit because I've got trip title and I've got, it's got a different column name though, right? And I've got a lot of different columns here, but title is just the one that's built in. So notice it's the one with the little $sign and the word title here. I'm going to change this to airline, and that's the one that I had in the other example, and preview it. Oh, airline is not found. Contact. Oh, this is the footer. I'm sorry. I pasted the wrong code. Let me just grab April's code for the header because this one doesn't have the footer code, the header code just by itself for some reason. Okay, yeah. That explains why she had her own special version of it. I have all these tabs open. Okay, let me go to the one that I'll show you where it is. So it's here on posts. And go to my resource links for today and go to April's code. Thank you, April. And then once I go to her code, then I go to the form header sample. And this is what I need to take and grab. So header, paste that in there. Without this GitHub thing. Okay, so hers has a column called status. It says status : and then it has status. I'll put airline, like I mentioned. So I'm putting airline in here, and then I'm going to go ahead and pick an airline and see that it's working. So I pick Alaska Air, and then it says, of course, it still says status, so I could change it to say airline. And preview that, and now it says airline, and then pick an airline. Okay, so that works, but so a couple of things to customize. I put a link in the chat, in these links to, and it's kind of buried in here, this UI fabric icons. So check that out. That is where she got her icon. That is at the top here. So when I look in the code here, My icon is called Web App Builder Fragment. That is the name of it. Y'all are hilarious. Okay, so Web App Builder Fragment, where in the world do we get, what if I just want to change it to some other icon, right? So where do I get those icons? So that is in that list of icons that I posted in the chat, in that hyperlink. Go grab that again. I feel like I opened them all in different tabs, and then I had so many tabs open I can't find anything. There we go. Okay, it opens up like this, and then you can just close this big thing and you can just search for things. So I searched for plane, and it gave me this. Then the key is when you hover over it, that's what you need. You need the name of it. So you need the name of the icon. And this name is airplane with a capital A. And this name is airplane solid. So airplane solid with a capital A and a capital S. So let's go ahead and go back to the list. And instead of Web App Builder Fragment, it's going to be airplane solid. And then let's see if it's case sensitive. So I'm going to put this a lowercase s. Now it looks like that works. So it looks like it's not case sensitive because it still works okay with a lowercase s. So that kind of looks nice. That gives you a nice way to kind of make your list look a little bit more professional, right? With it, it's a little bit, even though it involves code, it's a little bit faster than Power Apps. It just involves having to type the names of all of your columns. So in my header, here's what I struggled with. So I wanted the title to show. I wanted just the title column. Let me go ahead and save this and get it out of the way. Here. My trip title, I wanted that. That's what I wanted to be at the top. But that was easier said than done for some reason. Let's see. Ooh, that's a good question, Suzanne. Is it possible to build a form like this for the requester requesting an app and still have a Power App for approvals that may involve, let's see, I lost you already, that may involve just manager, other people who you may have more complexity to it, like rules that look at who the logged in user is and more stuff like that. Yes, well, this is just the customized list form. So technically you could go create a standalone Power App. I usually don't like customized list form Power Apps anyway. Go create a standalone Power App and just use this list as your data source. And then you can still, I mean, it's just a list, right? The Power App does not know. The Power App does not know that what you've done in customizing your form. Even if you clicked in here and clicked customize your form in Power Apps in the list, you could still create a standalone Power App and use that list as the back end, and both Power Apps could have the same list in their data source. So yeah, you could do that. The problem is on the list settings, you're going to have form settings, and this tells it what the default form is. So this is the default SharePoint form. This is the form that this editor that we're using. And if you switch over to Power Apps customize list form, it will only use the Power App. It won't use this formatter form we've been doing. So you can't have a customized list form Power App and a default SharePoint form at the same time, but you can have a standalone Power App. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's where you can get to that setting. Now, it was kind of painful. I still want to show you the cool conditional thing as well, but it was kind of painful dealing with which column that I wanted it to show in the header. It was harder than you'd think. So I went to my list settings and I said, well, this is just the title column. It says, so when I click on it, it says field equals title. And that's how you can get the system name of any column. But I have a lot of these sort of more complex columns. Like a lot of date and time. We've got a person or group. We got multiple lines of text, more dates. This choice field, airline, that one works. You notice that I typed airline and that one showed me the airline name. But then a lot of these other complex types, just nothing was happening when I was trying to just display that data in the title. So it may involve more complex syntax. I'm not positive, but I'm going to go ahead and create a more simple. I'm just going to create just a text column because the only column I have is a single line of text as title. And that one's got something weird going on because in this template that I used, the travel request, it already had like a different name. It said like trip title. So I'm wondering if something's weird going on with just the way that built-in column works. So I'm going to go ahead and add another new column, and I'll call it trip info. I'm just going to put no spaces in it, just super simple. And then just my form that I have that I already filled out. Notice that now that I added a new column, it just by default is just going to stick it at the bottom. So cool trip. So I've got my trip info. I typed cool trip. So now with trip info, let's see if I can get that to show in the header. Configure layout. I go to header, and then trip info. That's just going to be the text that shows there. And then I'll put trip info. Okay, and then, oops, go to the one that I already created and go look at it and look at that. So it says cool, it says trip info cool trip. So that is correctly showing that text field at the top. I just was trying to type. It's just going to need a different syntax for people fields and location fields and all these different fields that I was trying. So just keep that in mind, that it's just not going to simply take the name of any column in the JSON there. It has to be the system name, which is that column name that I just showed you in the list when it said, you know, at the top in the URL. It's got to be the system name, and so it's a little harder. And then you have the footer concept, which is the same concept you'll deal with when you're trying to create a footer of just whatever shows at the bottom of the form. So let's go look at April's code. What did I do with it? I lost it. Okay, I'm not going to do the footer right now. I still want to show you the conditional rules thing. The footer is the exact same concept and the exact same sort of nuances and issues as you'll have with the header, and just the fact that it's harder to get it to show certain types of fields, and just to be aware that there's going to be some different syntax to the more complex columns. Okay, this is cool. Watch this. When I go to this setting, edit columns, you have a new option here. Next to each column name, you can do edit conditional formula. Have you all seen this? This is awesome. I just sort of stumbled upon this. So to determine whether this field is shown or hidden, specify a conditional formula based on the value of another field. Leave it blank to clear the condition. So all this is doing is hiding or showing something. This doesn't have colors or anything. It's just whether a rule, whether you want something to be showing or hidden. But this is also code. But it gives you a lot of good examples. So these examples are really easy to deal with. So it's going to give you, say, if it's a choice column that you want to look at to get your condition, then use this syntax. If it's a number column, use this syntax. Date column. So it has all the specific different syntaxes that you can use depending on what type of column. So in this example, I'm going to do that column that I created. I am the traveler. I'm going to say that's the one that I want to look at to see if I want to show or hide which field. that is going to be requester. So I'll say I am traveling. I'll move it right above requester. So now I can see I am traveling is here, but when I change the, I want this by default to be yes, and then when I change it to no, then I want requester to show and they can fill in the requester. So I'll go edit columns, and so the requester is the one that I want to hide or show. So that's the one that I click on here. I'm glad you all think that's awesome. Thanks, Valerie. Okay, and I'm just going to paste my formula. So this is where you do need to know the system name of the column that you're putting here. And that's why I created kind of a long, ugly column name, because I want to show you how to go make sure that you get the right column name. Now, I just pasted it in here with the wrong column name. I'm just going to click save and save. And then I've got to go get the system name of the column that I'm referring to for my condition. So that is the I am the traveler, I am traveling column. So I'll go ahead and do, can I go the long way? Yes, you're right. And the syntax is similar to writing conditions in Power Apps, conditions in Excel, conditions in, like, you know, a lot of different programs. So it's good to understand that syntax. So I click on I am traveling and look up here at the top, field equals I am traveling. So that is the system name for this column. So that's what I need when I am using that in my logic. So I'll go ahead and go here again, go to edit columns to get to this. And notice this is grayed out. So the grayed out is going to be the good indicator where you can quickly see which ones that you've created the conditional formula on. And instead of $promoted, I change it to I am traveling. I've still got a problem. My logic is backwards. So my logic needs to be, if I am not traveling, it needs to appear. So I need to change the logic around. Go back and edit it again and say, if it's true, then false, otherwise true. And the false and true is just whether or not it's showing or hidden. Shut the front door. Thank you, Candace. Y'all are awesome. Okay, so now I go create a new travel request. I am traveling. Yes, that's fine. Or if I'm not traveling, I change it to no, and then, you know, Billy can be the one traveling. So that's, as a recap, thanks everybody for coming. We talked about the new rules interface and what it does and doesn't do, and we compared rules to alerts. And then we talked about the new edit form, the form editor, that's a JSON form editor, and how to edit the header, the body, and the footer of the way your SharePoint form looks. We looked at the new conditions that you can put on your columns to hide and show them under certain conditions when people are filling out the form. Wow. Anne says, yes, that's what we just did. Anne says, we'll be going over new rules in SharePoint lists and JSON form editor. Yep, that's what we just did. I think you're messing with me. The rules was what we talked about at the beginning of Power Hour, where we did create a rule, manage rules. And then the form editor was the thing that we just talked about with this thing with edit columns and configure layout. So that is what it was to translate. Thanks everybody for coming, and I will see you next time. Over and out.